Sorry, I just realized I forgot to do something here. Because I'm a professional streamer. I forgot to, make the mic not not mono. So, hi every macaron. Hello Jordan. Hello Enox. Thank you so much for following. Welcome to hell. Ow. 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 Hi Sirkree. Hello, hello. I hope you guys are having a nice, beautiful day. I hope you guys are having a nice, beautiful day, and that for those of you who celebrated Thanksgiving went well. I don't know how many of you celebrate Thanksgiving. I personally do not, but I hope you had a great time. So hi Rika. Thank you so much Erika for following. Hell, welcome to hell. I hope you'll enjoy your suffering with us and have a good lurky, Hanox. Hello Wutong. Hello Dance. I'm really happy to see you guys. Well, hello. How are you doing? Has everything been good? Have you been treated good by life? I would hope so. Better. Just jumping in real quick for resub message. Have a good stream. Thank you so much, Sai. Thank you. I appreciate your support a lot, and you are an absolutely great mod. Good luck with the Black Friday. I don't know if you still have to work on that, but I know Black Friday is hell. Almost as much hell as here. So I'm wishing you good luck. Good luck. Yes. Thank you so much for your work. Polaris, thank you so much for becoming a macaron. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And also, Sai, happy 3 month. I can't believe it's been 3 months. Wow. So here I get a hell on life. Is that why you guys are here? Is that why you guys are here? For the hellhound waifiness? Is it the hellhound waifiness? How? Okay. I worked Black Friday. I just got after being trampled on for 8 hours. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so well. Thank you for sacrificing yourself so we can have good deals. I personally haven't done Black Friday this year. I didn't buy anything because I did not want to get out of my house. You tend to prolongate Black Friday to. Oh, wait. We have a hype train. I just noticed we have a hype train. Thank you so much, macarons. Oh. No, wait. We have the possibility to start a hype train. Sorry, I can't read because I have a chat right in front of the little window. So I read that wrong. Do not feel obligated. Okay, do not feel any obligation to start a hype train. I just read that wrong. Stupid. Barely coworkers minute words. I'm so sorry to hear. Working in retail is an achievement. I'm really proud of you guys for doing so. You survived. Amazon is a thing, I know, but they didn't have much that interested me on sale. I didn't want spy stuff to buy stuff. I'd rather buy a stream upgrade if I'm gonna buy stuff. That makes sense. Yes. Why do you wanna die? No die. Unless you wanna die of spookiness. Do you wanna die of spookiness, chat? Cause I have. Oh! I just bunked myself on the desk. have selected delicious, delicious little stories to read you tonight on r/nosleep, but I will also check out the subreddit for stories because this is gonna be a longer ASMR stream than usual. Because this is Hellhound Friday, I'm kinda moving away from the old Hellhound Friday, which was only games. I kinda want Hellhound Friday to be the horror day, so we can do like horror stuff in general and community stuff too. Because I don't want to be tied up to doing games today. I really need to do ASMR with you guys today. Have some drinky. There we go. As the Californians say, slay murder me. I don't want to murder you. Not yet, not yet. Unless I do ada ada, then maybe I can murder you. What does an ASMR ada ada would sound like? Ada ada. Like that. Ada ada. Ada ada. Is that the murder? Does that do the kill? I don't know. I don't know. Thank you for summoning Snatcher. Snatcher will now be vibing with us for a little bit. Snatcher shall be vibing with us for a little bit. Now, let us start. I do not have any spooky sounds for you guys. We're gonna do this with no music because I think it's more relaxing that way. Yes, my nice earbuds so I can lay down and listen to this. Make sure you grab a blanket and a plushie to hold on to, just in case you're terrified. If you're terrified, you need to hold on to that plushie. I could make sure that you're okay too. I could cuddle you and keep you near me. And maybe if I do a good enough job. Okay. Blanket too tight. Well, have a good resty while we do this then. Make sure that you rest well, everyone, or I guess not rest, since it's gonna be spooky stories, but I mean, to each their own. Do you ever fall asleep while watching crime podcasts? True crime podcasts? Because I do, so. May I inquire how 2 plus 2 equals 6? Hi, I'm a boss. It just does. Also, I really like this. It's a Scaramouche emote, right? It's a Scaramouche emote, right? I fucking love it so much. It is so cute. Scaranation. But yeah, 2 plus 2 equals 6 because I said so. And if I said so, it must be right. It's just a simple request saying, oh, bruh. Can you bump your audio gain a tad? I know no one else has a problem, but they can turn it down in a max. Hey, chat, am I too low? Chat, am I too low? Because that's possible. It is a thing that is possible. Yes, yes, yes. I don't really get scared by horror stuff. I've been seasoned or a veteran pretty much my entire life. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Okay, I'm gonna up my gain slightly then. I don't know if I can do it much more than what it is already, but me. Gain it by 1. Does that sound better, Todd? Is this better? I'm just scared that, yeah, it's gonna peak if I do that, is the thing. Does that peak? Does that peak? Hi, penguin. Ow! I keep hurting myself. Hi, penguin king. How are you? How you doing? What's up? Thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate it a lot. Welcome to hell. So you're suffering. Does it peak? It does peak. I'm sorry, I can't do that in Polaris. Is it peaking or not? I'm not sure. Can someone tell me? Does it peak when I do this? Because I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it does. Ah, I don't. Okay then. It's okay then. It's Excel. Yes, it does. It does. It's Excel. I said so, so it's true. Promise that we're gonna actually get to the reading. I just want to say hi to it. Just want to welcome everyone before we start. Time to get ready. So you should get weak from the kisses. That is the whole point. Okay. Okay. Please do tell me if at any point I'm peaking, because I did up the sound a bit as requested. I'm having delicious tea, by the way. And it's only mildly hot because I kinda did too fast because I didn't want to be too late for stream. Okay. Let us start. We're gonna start with a classic horror story from r/nosleep. Says, I think my wife is a skinwalker. Would your waifu be? Imagine your waifu as a sleepwalker. A skinwalker, not a sleepwalker. Okay. My wife and I just recently welcomed my sweet daughter into this world. But I've got a bad feeling she may not be as sweet as she seems to be. But to understand why I'd say that about my own daughter, I need to give a backstory to the situation. We haven't been married for very long. It's not really frowned upon to marry soon. But when we were first dating and staying with my parents, we slept in their living room and woke up. I noticed the door was still unlocked. But I was sure always kept it locked. I never really noticed anything, though. I never saw any door, saw anything out of the ordinary. That would be a telltale sign. An intruder. I brought it up to my dad, so he took me to the office to check this. No one approached the house. In fact, everything's eerie still, except for a very large cat that would always hang out. That cat had been around a long time though. Thought maybe it was a neighbor cat, because we lived out at country of Texas, and there were the woods. But growing up there, I did actually notice, because that scared the shit out of me. I once saw my cat, Salad, shape-shifting right in front. Cousin and I were playing soldiers. The old man down the road would tell us stories of a panther that would kill people's horses. I wonder if it was really a shape-shifting cat or something. Dad also told me a story of a man that lived on our land. Before we did, sorry, I had to crack my back. Killed his daughter's bus driver for what she said he did to her one day. She came home crying. And he could see the ghost of that dad standing with a blood-stained shirt and evil radiating from his eyes. Of course, countless other stories, all sorts of things that go bump in the night. That seemed related to that night. The door was unlocked. However, since then, there's still a lot of things different about her. Too extreme, just things that only people really close to her would know. She started wearing makeup. She never really liked it before. What she liked to eat changed. But I didn't really know how to explain it. I had her a few months. I had to ask what she liked to eat a few times. Dates, family gathering. Every time I tried to talk to her about it, ask her if something, shut it down. So just deal with the fact that maybe was just discovering her who she really is. Got used to it. It wasn't a big deal after all. Like I said, it wasn't anything major. She still seemed like the girl I loved. Like I said, wait, am I late? Like I said, we had only been dating for a few months at the time. So started calling me Vicious, which wasn't that name she used before. Tried to ignore how uncomfortable her tone was when she used it. It was probably just sexual anyway. More recently, I've noticed odd smell originating from under her house. Walking around the also noticed a great number of flies and carrion birds. I was hoping a lost dog or some large rodent had just crawled under the died. But one day I found the promise ring given her that she said she lost before we even moved to this house. It looked extreme now and caked with mud. Started nosing under near where the ring was laying. Large indention on the earth. Something was laying there but had been moved. Soon after that day, she surprised me with the news. We were going to be parents. I was so excited at first, till I realized something. Just initial suspicions were proven true when she got pregnant. See, life warned me right away not to expect children because of an accident she had when she was small. She wasn't fertile. Oof, okay, I thought the guy was just delusional and had gotten call it seated on, but okay, I guess it really might be Skinwalker. Give me a second. sorry, I was deleting the message because we do not speak only English and French here. And since I don't know what is in this message, I'd rather not keep it on screen. Just in case. Just in case. Please only speak in English and French in the chat so I can actually understand. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, Sebastian, for following. Welcome to hell. I hope you'll enjoy your suffering. Okay, well, this was a great story. Time to move on to the next story now. Are you guys ready? Next one is called Employees Only and was written by Joe the Same. Supposed to take about 12 hours or so to get from my hope and friendship to Savannah, Georgia. Anyone who has traveled down and has seen signs for a certain tourist trap of questionable racial sensitivity plays far to the south. One can play golf and experience shame at the same time. I will not name the place, but anyone on the East Coast will know the place I'm talking about. Oh, you won't? Wow. Of course, since you're new, introduce myself. Then you're Rika. Vtuber. I do a lot of ID, just chatting, and ASMR. Today we are in horror story /nosleep. Oh, you asked so for the awawa. Just awawawa. Awa. 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 There you go. Guys inside the awa. Let's continue. Now, I've never been there myself until recently on my savannah trip. I noticed it on the way down and did a seed of curiosity in me. After my time in savannah was over, and it was wonderful, thank you for asking, I decided to stop on the way and see if it was as cheesy and offensive as the billboards up and down the coast led you to believe. I exited 95 about 2 hours into the trip and pulled into a parking lot that was full of cars and guided by a tower topped by a huge sombrero. Like I said, not racially or culturally sensitive in the least. Got out of the car, looked around, tried to figure out what kind of person comes to a place like this. It was a couple wearing trucker hats that said pride and grim. More than a few seniors piling out of a large store bus. Almost all were looking around with mixed expressions of their embarrassment. I realized that I shared their bewildered expressions. Okay, I'm kinda. Okay, I'm not gonna actually that one because I don't like old jokes in it and I've been skipping a lot. So I'm just gonna read another one. How? Hi, Kirito. How are you doing? Do you want Awawa Polaris? You're not new, but I guess you could get Awawa since you're asking so nicely. Hello, sucking Tom Cruise tails. That is a wonderful username, by the way. I too would like to suck on his tails, thank you. Thank you so much, little Garito. Rika loves you macarons very much too. Kisses for the road, yes. So hi, Flint. How are you doing? What's up? Really happy to see you. Got my heart, Rika. Why must you be so damn cute? I'm not cute. I'm being very scary today. You're reading scary stories. You're too nice. No problem, with pleasure. I admire his username. I understand. Understand. Okay. So, next story that we're gonna read is I was offered a very weird job, and I'm not sure I want it in here. Being scary. To my girl. To my girl scare you. But my girl is scary. Is that scary enough to Is that scary enough? Let's start reading the story, Zoe. I am a single father, 2 children. I have to support the family. It's difficult. I make barely enough money to live. Till found something. One day I was scrolling on Instagram until I stumbled upon an interesting advertisement for a job. It seemed innocent enough. I had to deliver a package to a house each day. I messaged the person running the account and we wrote back and forth. Hey, I'm interested in this job. How much does it pay? $3,000 each day. Well, how can I get started? There are a few rules to follow before you get started. At this point, I thought it was kind of cheap. It was the best shot I had at making some money. Through the list of rules. 1. Make sure to deliver the package as quietly as possible. Do not knock on the door. 2. Make sure to deliver the package 3 to 4 us the building. See it. But make sure to go on the elevator on the left, on the right. The elevator. That's wood. This step is very important. I've had a person sitting at a desk. Ask them for a package. John, give you the package. Go on elevator. Left again. Press that order again. Sure to keep the package safe. You cannot deliver package to runs. And I to see he was good. Also, Garrido, you want me to insult you before we continue? Well, how desperate you are. Oh, you want me to insult you? How fucking desperate of you. Grovel at my feet, asking for me to look down on you. What do you want from me? Do you want me to step on you? Do you want to wiggle like a little worm? Is that what you Garrido? Now, are you happy? It makes me so fucking embarrassed to do this. I'm so embarrassed. I followed but didn't get the points on email. That is weird. You might refresh the page. You might want to refresh the page if you didn't get points or email, because that is what you should be getting both. I think I'm happy. Good. Proud of you. Let's continue now, shall we? At this point, I was doubting accepting this job, but for some odd reason I accepted it. The next morning, I was ready for the first day of the job. I made sure it was 3 to 275. Spotted the building. Inside. Walked into the elevator and clicked floor 1, floor 39. So the man at the desk asked for tickets. Then stepped back into the elevator. This time, just it took quite some time to get to the top. I was getting concerned after 10 minutes, I still hadn't gotten any. Tried calling the police, but I had no signal. Tried yelled for help. It was all useless. Around the 25-minute mark, I started experiencing a shaking. The amount of shaking escalated, and I knew I was on the floor, unable to move. After 10 seconds, the door opened, but something. As the door opened, I was met with hundreds of thousands of creatures working on high-tech computers. The computers were not something human. They were much more advanced. second I stepped into the room, they turned around, froze. They were faceless except for a huge, eerie smile on their face. Whatever they were much taller than a regular human. Like I was saying, they turned around, repeated the sentence. Not supposed to be. Turned around, but the elevator was gone. Sprinted for my life while it ran after me with unhuman speed. Kept running till I fell and grabbed my superhuman strength, but looked back. It's gone. There was no trace of any computers or just a single elevator. Do it. At this point, I don't know what to do. I'm sitting in here. I just feel weak, tired. Every few minutes, I hear a slight cry coming outside the door. Then I walked into the wrong elevator. I went into the elevator on the right while walking back. Update you on what's next. And there is no update yet. Chat, there is no update yet. They're still stuck in the elevator. Now let me get to all your messages. I wanted to finish reading before doing anything. Chris, welcome to Hell, how to Matron. I hope you'll enjoy your suffering. So hello. Enoch's happy to know that you're European, which means this is normal sleeping hours for you. Aren't sleep deprived yet. As for your redeem, you're welcome. Hey Leo, how you doing? What's up? Happy to see you today. Been reading the scary stories ASMR style, busting it down ASMR style today. I'm gonna get to the next story now. Yes, gonna get to the next little story. If you guys are ready, next story is Summer I Met David. It is a longer one. It has a lot of parts, so probably try to read this tonight. How does that sound, chat? Does that sound good? I think it sounds good. Okay. Get ready. I'm gonna have a drink and then I'm gonna start. Do a slight break in the middle. A very slight break in the middle. So I can like rehydrate and shit, but you know. Okay. When I was young, we lived in an old farmhouse. I remember my father telling me that it was more than 100 years old. That was the cause for the strange noises in the middle of the night. Never believed him. I was convinced that noises were just David messing around downstairs, but those early weeks of our friendship, no one in my family believed it was him. Never bothered to question why. My father had inherited a 65-acre pig farm that he and his father built from the ground up. Can't remember how many pigs we had, but it was enough to warrant 2 parts. Lived on this farm with my family, 3 older brother and 1 younger brother, till I was 8. It was quite suddenly after a bad accident involving Joey, my younger brother, leaving him paralyzed. I didn't understand then why my father sold his farm at the time. I do now. We had no neighbors to speak of to our left. You'd have to go down more than 5 miles of road and across a highway before you happened upon the next home. To the right, if you followed the large hill up and went around the bend, eventually you'd come across Mr. Carlin's house. I didn't know much about him, other than he owned the cornfield that sat on the other side of the street, right across from our house. He always waved at me when he was on his tractor. My mother at one point had informed me that Mr. Callan once had children and a wife. The house fire had killed them all and left him alone. That was back when his house was right across the street from ours, before he planted the cornfield over it. Now, it's important to note that Mr. Collin was nearing 80, and my mother told me that this all happened when he was a young man. I suspect a good 50 years had passed from the time his home burned to the ground, taking out the lives of his family. And the summer that I met David. It was the first Monday afternoon of summer. I was especially happy because I hadn't had to go to school, and at the time the first Monday was something of a commodity. Taking my big bite with pretty red ribbons, a handlebars for a ride in a long drive. Being the spunky 6-year-old I was, I'd grown tired of doing circles just outside of my house. I craved adventure, or at the very least, the chance to poke and prod spiders at the bridge. I knew there was no chance of my mom and dad allowing me to go down to the bridge by myself, but they didn't know, couldn't hurt them. My dad was off on the farm doing whatever it was he did, but my mom was still inside, which meant I couldn't go. Not yet. I bided my time doing circles in the driveway until I watched my mom drive away, heading towards her church group. I saw my chance and took it. It was late afternoon and the sun was high in the sky, beating down unforgivingly on me. Jack, my oldest brother, was shirtless and tossing large bales of hay onto a wagon. I rode up to him. Sweetly as I could muster, I asked for permission to go, reminding him that the bridge was still in his sight, barely 50 yards from her. Jack's lips pressed together in a like they usually did when he was thinking. Eyes narrowed and he looked back towards me. Dad doesn't like you going off on your own, you know that. One of us to go with you. Pull it out into a pout and I gave him the sad eyes I spent weeks perfecting in the... I know, I whined. But you're busy, and Jim is with Dad. I don't even know where Johnny is. Please. I've been in the house all day helping cleaning. Scrub the walls, Jack. The walls. justice when, in reality, Mom and I scrubbed the between a toddler brother and three older siblings, the always getting filthy. But Jack didn't know that. All his gaze full looked up into his green eyes, giving him the most pathetic whimper. Looked over his shoulder one time in search of her father. Was of course nowhere to be seen. I had him in the palm of my hand. To think about being an only sister in a house full of boys, that they developed this need to keep me safe and also happy. Sometimes that extended out to them do things I shouldn't have done. Alright, Jazzy, said, using the name I despised so much. It made me sound like a baby. I wasn't a baby anymore. But just this once, and if you get caught, don't tell Dad that I was the one to tell you it was okay, right? I jumped up excitedly. Yes, cried happily, before hopping on my back, pedaling as fast as I could down the gravel driveway. My plan was to get the hell out of there before Jack came to his senses and realized my dad would have murdered him for letting me go off on my own. We lived under strict rules. No one younger than Jim at age 10 allowed to go anywhere on their own, even if it was just down the road. My father was a strong believer in the buddy system. His worries didn't stem from an area riddled with crime, but instead the simple fact that it was summer. Summer meant a bunch of people around Mr. Collins' house that no one in the family knew or cares. I managed to get my little butt all the way down to the bridge without Jack calling me back, or Dad coming out of the barn and throwing a tantrum. Once there, I spent my few precious moments of freedom twirling thin sticks into the sticky spider web. The first few nudges, the spiders would get excited. They'd glide across their web in a graceful display. I can only describe it. Small, shiny foot prodded at the stick. Tried to decide, fading it. After several seconds of trying to decide, the spiders would often have their way explore the stick, giving me a chance to put my patiently to the sound down, comb my skin with their tiny pudding leg. There was terrified of spiders. My brother and I debilitated taught me that they were bugs. I thought them to be endearing, which was admitted strange. Small girl was about to let my fifth spider day go in the woods beside the post of the bridge. Small show me how sing. Is that a spider? I asked incredulously. I stood up and turned around only to find a boy, probably a year or two older than myself, standing just a few feet away from me. Eyes were locked onto the spider that was now dangling fingertip. Gave me a toothy grin, stared up to him. Yep, I answered. It's the people being over really critical of a girl who likes and it's cool love bugs. My eyes lit up. I do too, I gushed happily. It's Jasmine. Yours. Same old introduction they taught us in kindergarten, first grade. David, he answered, using the word David. It took me a full minute to put together that it was Mexican, which made sense, given his dark hair, skin, stain. Then, play, I asked. Boy, a stick. They did. There we went, shoulder to shoulder, disrupting webs, talking about the pretty designs on the backs of the spiders. Soon enough, we'd run out of the large block for the magnates to play with. Stopped David. Wrangled her to the end of the bridge and found a sleek, bulbous, fat spider to poke at. Come here, Jasmine, he called, softer in his voice. Look at how pretty this one is. You should hold it. Then to take pictures. I was filled with a sudden, tingling sort of fear that started at the base of my spine and up to my limb. Tiny hands reached out, slapped the stick away from David's hand. Ow! Shouted, glaring at me. You can't touch those, David, explained, trying to keep my sudden fear and anger in check. I did what I could to explain this to him like my father explained everything to me. Calmly, quietly, without anger, judgment. See that red dot? It's back. Get its belly. It'll have a red hourglass on it. That means it's poison. It's a black widow, I explained. Can't touch them. If you get bit, you could die. I don't. Shaking his head. Who told you that? He asked. Whatever it was. Dad gets these all the time. He spoke with conviction and sincerity that I remember thinking that perhaps I'd remembered the spiders with the dots on their backs that I shouldn't play. I looked over to him. Are you sure? I asked. For now, I picked up my stick and began the slow process of twirling the web. The spider had just started looking at the twig when a clear voice called me. I spun around, eyes on my house. Jack stood, waving his arms. Come inside, it's time for dinner. Can I bring my friend? I shouted back. Jack paused for a long time, eyes on David and I before he nodded. Sure, why not? I'll ask Mom to set another place. Threw the sticks to the ground, abandoning the spider, turned back to David, who, for one reason or another, looked a little angry. Brushed it off, not knowing or really caring why you might be upset. You wanna decide for this? I asked. His features slowly began to melt into the same pleasant look he'd worn since we'd met. Sure, You need to ask your mom or dad yet. I lifted my bike from the ground. David shook his head. No. Dad won't worry unless it's out past dark. Promise. Only 5 p.m. There was still plenty of summer sun in the sky. Together we walked down the road and across the driveway. I left my bike in the garage and then the two of us went inside. Hey, Mama shouted through the home. Pointed over to David. This is David. Sorry, David. I said, using his pronunciation of the world. Met him by the bridge. Explained. His dad won't care if he's here as long as he's home by dark. Can you stay for dinner? Mom turned to us, her eyes sparkling. Amusement, happiness. Probably because for the first time in forever, brought home a friend. Knew from experience that because David was also going to be making jokes, just dating, getting married. But didn't think I cared. Sure, you can stay, Mom answered. Odd. Thanks, I chirped. You, ma'am, David said, a smile on his lips, using a title that most kids use speaking to an adult. Welcome, sang back as she grabbed up a heaping glass bowl of potato counter, took them into the dining room. Everyone else was already sitting, expectant eyes on Daniel as we walked through the threshold. Confusion washed over the face of my own. Tony was only 2 years older than myself. Laughed and mumbled something under his breath about find a real friend. Wow. Oh, how are you? How are you? Thank you so much, Logra, for the raid. Really appreciate it. Shout you out. Hello, raiders. Oh, hello. Welcome. Tell me the raid music will play. Do you want me to do the raid music? Ow, wow. Ow, wow. Ow, wow, 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 wow. Ow, wow. Ow, wow. Ow, 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 ow. Hello, raiders. Hello. Hello, Gra. It's Twilight. Hello. Hi, Cole. Give the nuggies. We do not have any nuggies left, but I do have cookies. Let me shout you out, Logra. Thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. I hope you had a really nice stream. Spam, give the nuggies. I ate all the nuggies. I ate all the nuggies. All the nuggies are mine now. All of them. But you can have a kiss. Thank you for following, Spam. Welcome to hell. I hope you'll enjoy your suffering. Hell, I wanted nuggies. Well, no more nuggies. No more nuggies. I've eaten all the nuggies. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. She offered cookies and kisses. That's fine. And you can have little cookies. You can have some hot milk. And you can have horror ASMR. Isn't that great? We are reading our / nosleep stories. So, I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll enjoy it. Did you like the turkey pictures? Yes, I did like the turkey pictures very much. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. How. They look delicious. I would like plenty of turkey, please. I do not celebrate Thanksgiving, so of course I would be very interested in some nuggies because in some turkey. You guys were talking about nuggies, so it made me think we were talking about nuggies. But no, I meant turkey. I would like some delicious turkey. Thank you very much. I'll give you a few kisses for the raid to thank you, and then we'll go back to reading. I hope you have a blanket. I hope that you're comfy, every macaroon. Just there you go. Plenty of kisses for you guys. Thank you so much for rating. Appreciate you. I will bring you some. Do bring me some turkey. Oh yeah, we don't have quotes yet. We don't have no quotes yet. No quotes as of now, but I can guarantee we have a few good clips. Final Fantasy XIV Command. Did you know that the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV has a free trial and includes the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heavensward expansion up to level 60. No restriction on playtime. Remy, thank you so much for the love. I really appreciate you because loves you macaroons very much. Very, very, very much. There you go, plenty of kisses for you guys, plenty of kisses. Yes, yes. And I'm getting a little bit of liquid in my body. Before we continue, before we keep going. So we were reading The Summer I Met David. To sum it up so far, it is a little girl that goes to play bridge, and she meets a little boy, David, to pronounce it like he does, David, which is like kind of the French way too. And he's called David, and well, they play with spiders for a bit, and they almost touch a Black Widow, but right before they actually do, the little girl gets called home for dinner, and she invites David to come with her. So right now she's at the table, and I'm gonna go continue the story, so you guys can stay and get comfy, get very comfy, yes, comfy. So let's go, let's do it, let's continue. Okay, so let's do it again. Let's continue reading. Yes. Okay. So, confusion washed over the faces of my older family members, while Johnny was only 2 years older than myself, and it's her brother, by the way, often mumbled something under his breath about me being able to find the real Rika. I looked over to David. To my dismay, looked entirely ashamed. Never been so lit. John and his friend were all terribly. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. But so David is Mexican, which is according to what's coming next. Over to David, who, to my dismay, looked entirely ashamed. I had never been so livid in John and his friend were all terribly racist, and Mom and Dad did what they could to stop the hip behavior. His command, much like this one, occasionally slipped out. I glared at him, but my father was the one to speak. Johnny, he snapped. That isn't nice. Apologize, he demanded. Johnny looked back at us with irritation written across his features. Sorry, he sneered. Didn't mean apology. That much was positively certain. one else bothered to tell him off, so I simply took our seats quietly, right beside one another. Glared at Johnny for several seconds, but Johnny made a point of completely ignoring him. David, where are you from? Asked. Mexico, David. Dad and I come here every year in summer, so my dad can work. Sometimes I help too, yeah. That's very interesting, chirped, before looking over to me. How did you two meet? Asked. I knew exactly where this was going and I wasn't having any of it. Mom, aren't dating, I insisted. My mother raised her arms in surrender. No one said you were. I just asked where you met. By the bridge, answered. Cats are gargling over you, Logra. Perfect, perfect. Good as that, because Sphinx, but no legs. I have legs now. Nowadays I have legs. These days I have legs. I used to not have legs, but now I have legs. Yeah. By the bridge, David answered. Glanced over to him. My famous urban garlic mashed potatoes. David was sitting politely, his hands folded in his lap. For one reason or another, he hadn't touched his food. In fact, his eyes were still locked on Johnny. Seemed to his furrowed in response, his lips pressed into a thin. Yeah, by the bridge, answered, once my mouth was no longer filled with potatoes. Watched the anger rise up in his face. Jack shift uncomfortably in his seat. My father opened his mouth, probably to ask why I thought it was a good idea to go out to the bridge by myself. Suddenly I remembered the spider, and while I hadn't intended to cut him off, I also hadn't grown enough to develop the patience needed to wait for someone else to speak while something so pressing was staring into my brain. Hey, what spiders are the black widows? I asked. Are they the one with the yellow dot? Or the red dot? I asked. My father's brow shot up. Watched Jack visibly relax into his seat. Tells me a grateful look. Red dot, Dad answered, his voice leaving no room for argument or uncertainty. I could tell in that moment that he'd entirely forgotten the bridge. His mind now on spy, keeping me away from the most dangerous one. Why, did you see one? He asked. Yeah, David thought we could play with it, but I told him we couldn't. I left out the part where I decided to do it anyway. I hadn't touched it after all. There's no chance it had somehow bitten and poisoned me. You and David stay away from those, Dad said, his eyes narrowed to the two of us. Yes, sir, we echoed. My father didn't look angry, so, in the rare occasions like this one, I was sure to listen to him. Spam. So, for those of you who are new here, my name is Rika. I'm your favorite Hellhound Vtuber. As herself, I do a lot of just chatting, variety, ASMR. Oh, I hope you'll enjoy yourself right here. Now that you want no headbutts, I hate headbutts. As I was saying. Now that I said this, now that I introduced myself for the new people, if you want awawa, I will give you awawa. There you go. Welcome to the Awa Awa. Spooky. Oh, you want Rika's wisdom? Well, okay. Let's do Rika's wisdom. When you're at night, it's night, you know, when you room it. If you have a window in your room, do not look at the window. 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 Close the curtains. Close curtains. You need to close curtains. Yes. Close curtains. Don't look. Don't look. Close curtains. Just close curtains. Listen, it gotta be themed, okay? We're doing horror thing. My wisdom has to be creepy. But hi, Spooky. I'm happy to see. Also, Remy, how fucking dare you headbutt me? How fucking dare you headbutt me like this? How fucking dare you, huh? Let's continue, Solly. Let's just have a little bit of hydration, and we shall continue. Dinner passed quickly, and Davin and I were told to go outside and play, but to stay clear of spiders. It was acting really weird that night, almost angry. I wonder if it was because Dad had yelled at us. Put the thought out of my mind until the sun touched the horizon. David said he needed to go, and my mother called me inside. The next several weeks passed without incident. David started coming over every day, becoming a regular fixture in the house. Play outside. We went with Jim and Jack a few times to go fishing. Company to town, go shopping. It's nice enough to buy his boat and ice cream. Unfortunately, the moment we got outside, David dropped his. He looked so gross and so embarrassed about the whole thing that I quickly offered to share my own. Took me up on the offer, and my mom was sure to tell me how nice I was being. I started drawing pictures of David and I together. I was rather talented of an artist at my meager 6 years of age. What I mean by this is my stick figures had both the proper color of skin and hair, and we were both clothed. David had quickly become my best friend. It wasn't odd for him to come over, stay from daybreak to sundown. Sometimes he'd been waiting for me outside when I woke up. I'd run to the door, fling it open, tell him to come in. He always helped with chores. Said he didn't have to. Been friend for nearly 2 full months when he first breached the subject of a sleepover with me. I agreed and hastily ran inside to ask my mom and dad who were sitting at the table, discussing bills. Agreed, but on the condition that he slept downstairs on the couch, that and I cleaned up after ourselves. That evening after dinner, snarky remarks from Johnny was good at making David feel bad about himself, something that pissed me off to no end. We got to work on making David's bed. We made a veritable fort that we decided we'd play in before we went to bed. We decided we were in the ocean. David and I were pirates, looking for buried treasure. Search crash landing on Five Island before a fun was cut so at around 9 p.m. Nearly a full hour after my normal time. I fell asleep with the adventures dancing through my mind. We'd done so much in the past 2 months. I felt so lucky. I met David. Wouldn't admit it at the time, but I will now. I had quite a crush on him. I was looking from my slumber in the night, large crash, a howling scream, likes of which I'd never experienced before, coursed through my body as I threw blankets off myself and joined the ranks of my parents and older siblings as we rushed down the hall. Joey, her brother, could be heard crying in his bedroom. Jim was quick to rush to him. Could be heard through the hallway. Sure that as he the 3-year that everything was okay. I remember Jack stopping me just as the banister. Oh, whoa there, Jazzy. His voice was too quiet. Calm. Everyone sounded frantic. Someone downstairs was crying. I was terrified that David had gotten hurt. Don't mind this, the demon just jumped on me. You do not hear purring. It is by your imagination. There is no cat in this room, only a very, very needy demon. What? Just stay down, okay? Okay, let's continue. What's wrong? I demanded. Stop grasping my ASMR stream. Just lay down. Shh. 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 Can you guys hear? Somewhere. Okay, that was right, chat. Someone want attention. I have to give it to them. Jack paused, his eyes moving back to the staircase before looking back at me. Johnny just fell down the stairs. He'll be okay, he promised. Touched him carefully. It's okay and nothing's wrong. Why couldn't I go see? Didn't make any sense. Then, one shouted sentence clear. I can see my bone. Johnny went base of the stairs. Jack winced and my heart skipped a beat. Higher. He's not gay. Unshed tears began to well up as Jack tried to direct me back to my bedroom. Wasn't having any. Tried to push my way back towards the stairway. Barely 30 pounds, standing several inches shorter to my. Jack had taken after my 6 feet tall, deadly 150 pounds. After several seconds of scrambling against his took to screaming. Make sure Johnny's okay. What if I come with what? Groggy David asked from the gaze. Stop touching body after body of our family. I looked up to Jack. Is that okay? Wiping new tears away from my eyes with the sleeve of my pajamas. Can I go to my room, David? Jack swiped black hair back with his hand, gave a nod. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. Sure, Jazzy. Sure. Dad and Mom are gonna take Johnny to the hospital. If you or David need it, you can come and get me, okay? David and I slid back to my bedroom. Down in my foot, talked about how Johnny's looked. David had seen it, its way up, jutting out the wrist and looked wider. But his arm that we should have stayed up until sunrise, the dark sky. Talked all the while, assured me that he was fine. Be okay. Just cast, please some stitches. David had a really always making me better. Oh, yeah, Billy. Oh, oh, oh. Hello, Billy. I hope you're doing good today. You're reading more stories on this last no sleep. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. You had a really great Thanksgiving. Through the course of the next few days, Johnny went on and on about how he'd been pushed down the stairs. He blamed him, but he and Zach shared a room, and Zach assured him that he'd been sleeping the whole time. He only woke in seconds after Zach did. The same. Certain had been Jim. Because he said he saw someone just a little shorter than himself behind him when it. Despite Tim being a full 2 years older than Johnny, Tim, like me, was short for his age. While Johnny and Zach were both giants. Johnny and Tim fought for days after that, always arguing, always shouting at each other. At one point, Johnny actually took a swing at him. Tim managed to dodge the blow, but Dad had to intervene. Took them both to the kitchen to talk. No one was supposed to listen in when someone got in trouble, but curious kid. I decided I needed to know what was. David and I stood in the long weeds that had once been part of the flower garden. Beautiful bursts of violet, red, pink, eventually taken over, drowned out by thick weeds, dandelions. After Joey was born, Mom suddenly didn't have time to tend to flowers. Our backs were against the front paneling, just below the open window. We made no noise as we listened intently to what was being said. I questioned him over and over about what had happened. Jim insisted he he was asleep. Johnny called him a liar a few times, and eventually Jim broke down. I'd never heard Jim cry before. It was heartbreaking. I asked over, but I know leave them, reminding Dad that Jack had vouched for him. Dad apologized, but Jim wasn't having any of it. He asked to go to his room. I could tell Dad felt bad, just by the silent, likely nodding his head in response. Squeak of the chair against slime, suddenly the only kitchen. After a solid silence, Johnny's voice rang out. Someone sorted and reached me, insisted. To be Jim, Jasmine. It hurt at a point. Looking back, I wish I would have paid more attention to what was being said. As it began to step away. Stopped when I caught sight of something in front of me. Suddenly the world ceased to exist. Noise, the rush of my own blood behind my drums faded away. As I grew aware of my own heartbeat, rapid, ragged breaths that tortured my chest. I love the way snakes move. So pretty, so graceful. Have a quiet elegance about them. The snake made that dizzying, heartbound sort of fear creep up on me. My hands went numbed, and I let a small, distinctly feminine squeak. Looked down, genuine smile across his lips. Hey, look, a king snake, he said happily. That's not a king snake. It's red, yellow, black. It's a coral snake. They're both light, though I'd been punched in the gut. Kept imagining it striking, biting me down to the bone and stopping my heart. So let me get the stats right. No, it isn't, David insisted. I reached down to grab it by the back of the neck. Aside, coming very still, didn't react. Acted as though it had its presence. See, they're nice. Catch these all the time back home in Mexico. You can pick it up. It won't hurt you. Looked at him with hesitance. He'd been wrong about the spider. Why wouldn't he be this? David rolled his eyes and began to pet it. His free hand. See, it's fine. Just pick it up. I'll keep us steady, he promised. Welcome to hell, Dad. Welcome. I hope you'll enjoy your supper. Should have listened to my gut. Walked away. There, but I didn't. 6-year-old brain was insisting that David could touch it. So could I. Slowly, so as to not scare it, get wiggled David's grasp. I bent down, outstretched. Jasmine, came a frantic shout from David and I jumped up. The snake bolted free, heading straight towards me, shrieked. Looking from the snakes to my now terrified brother. Jack grabbed a nerve shovel and sprinted towards me. Still, he shouted. David was half across the drive. Run, he shouted. Run before it bites you. I've been thinking clearly. Alarms would have been going off in my head. The king snake. David knew. Then why did I have to run? I wasn't thinking rationally. I was caught in the moment. It was in my hands were clammy, shaking. Felt like it was going to break. Jack was too far to help. The snake rose up on its belly, bobbing back and forth. Snake swell. Strike. Run, came David's command again. I did. About 2 steps away when I felt something hit the back of my shoe. I let out a howl of terror. Thwack! Before the snake had a chance to strike a second time, Jack's shovel buried its head into the ground. The snake's body writhed and struggled beneath. Its tail whipped the ground beneath and flattened out chickweed. Jack stomped on the metal part of the shovel over, causing the grunts of breaking bones to echo in the pseudo silence. The familiar sound of the screen door slamming caused me to jump and spin to face the front of the house. Dad rounded the corner, trailed with both demanding what the noise was about. Jack lifted the shovel, the snake a few times, certain, before he scooped up the corpse, showed my Tommy nearly got herself killed. She tried to pick this thing up, he answered. How are you, Savkiel? Extra comfy. Ow. Hi dog, hi Ty. Hi our sour grapes, hello. Doing? What's up? Are you doing good today? Are you ready for some spooky reading? This is a very story of reading. We'll have a little bit more, very reading time. Our story reading stream pretty good, thank you. Pretty good. Enjoying the story actually. It's one of the best one I've read yet, because it's kind of a slow burn, and I'm very into slow burns. Why is it so comfy? Thank you. Appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. Sure. What is it about? So it is a r/nosleep story. I'm going to sum it up so far for people who just arrived so you can follow with us. So it's the story of a girl on a farm with her brothers, her dad, and her mom. One day she goes to a bridge house she's not supposed to, and she meets a little Mexican boy called David. And they play with spiders. They almost get bitten by a black widow because David told her that it wasn't one. But right before they do get called for dinner, so the little introduces David to her family. And they become friends for 2 months. And those 2 months invited to a sleepover. And so they sleep in separate rooms. But that night, Johnny, the younger brother, is being explicitly racist towards David. Coincidentally, falls down the stairs and breaks his wrist really bad. He's accusing one of his brothers to have pushed him, and right now, just haven't is that the the boy was like, "Hey, funny snake," and held the snake in front of the protagonist, like, "Hey, you can touch it," except she couldn't, and she almost got bitten. So I'm expecting that. I don't know. I'm expecting a twist. What kind of twist is gonna be? I have no idea. What kind of twist? I think. Okay, my idea on this. My idea on this story that David is a ghost and that he's trying to get the protag to join it after because he feels lonely. That is my theory, but I could be wrong. Could be very. I don't know. Yeah. But I like this story so far. Really slow, but we might get surprised. I get very surprised with what's gonna happen because it has 7 parts. Is that right? I would definitely. Yeah, I would definitely take. I think that your mic is cutting. Okay, thank you for telling me. I know you're right. You're right. Be cutting. It might be cutting. Might be my noise gate. Because that's the thing I was not. Okay, yes, that is 100% the thing I forgot to turn off. I forgot to turn off my noise gate. I hope the story was still understandable so far, but yeah. But yeah. I definitely would take someone with me. Do not mind the definitely not cat noise. One of the demons just decided that she wanted attention, and so she just kind of jumped on my lap middle of the stream. So right now she's moving around and trying to get comfy. Okay, let's continue the story. All the colors leaked from my parents' face as they stared down at the 3-foot behemoth. "Jasmine," my mom shouted, her eyes alive with fear as she stared over to David and I. "You know what a coral snake looks like." I burped. "You know what a coral snake looks like." My bottom lip quivered, and tears spilled out my cheeks. "I thought it was a king snake," I insisted. "I really did." "Jasmine, we don't have king snakes around here," my father explained. The fear had been replaced by a quiet sort of anger. I knew I was in for it, and as shameful as it is to admit, I didn't want to go down alone. "David told me it was," I shouted. David's eyes widened and he glared death at me as I confessed to everything. He told me it was a king snake. He told me to pick it up. He told me to run. "Enough," my dad shouted. "If David is going to get you hurt, then he can't come over anymore," he boomed. It was a sort of angry shouting that seemed to shake the whole world. I'd never heard my father yell before. To say I was terrified is an understatement. "You hear that, David?" my father asked, glowering daggers at the two of us. "You aren't welcome here anymore." Mike is perfect now, by the way. Nice to hear. Ow, 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 ow. Ow, 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 ow. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate it. Kisses for you. David grabbed my hand, tears in his eyes. He pulled me towards the end of the driveway. "Let's go," he shouted. I tried to stop, but David was strong. So much stronger than I remembered him being. He pulled me across gravel, forcing me to go. "Get your ass back here, Jasmine," my father roared. He'd never sworn before that point. Suddenly, I stopped struggling and began sprinting right beside David. I'd never been spanked, not once, but I knew from the stories Jack had told me about when he was little that that's what was about to happen. "Where are we going?" I asked, as our shoes bounced against the pavement of the road. My heart was glowing at my chest, begging to be freed. My whole body thrummed with excitement and fear. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Tears streamed down my face. Into the cornfield, David shouted back. "We'll go find my dad. He won't let your dad hurt us," he promised. Looking back now, I know that under normal circumstances, I'd never run from my father. I'd never been abused and had no reason to fear him, but in that moment, I was terrified. Heavy footfalls exploded from behind us, but I never looked back. I slipped into the cornfield behind David. We touched large stalks of corn, running this way and that, trying to push as much distance between us and the footfalls as we could. I shrieked when something hard grabbed my shoulder. Whoever it was forced me to stop. David continued to pull at my arm. It felt as though he was going to rip it from its socket. I howled in agony, my limbs wildly swinging as I tried to prevent myself from being stolen away from my best friend and the promised safety of his father. "Holy fuck," Jack breathed. It was with those words that sudden clarity settled over me. Something was very wrong. Jack didn't swear. My father forbade it. Jack's arm suddenly wrapped around my waist. "Holy fuck," he repeated. Dread filled my small body. Jack wouldn't have sworn unless something was terribly wrong. I stopped thrashing. I looked up to Jack. I'll never forget what I saw in that moment. Jack's eyes were wide with fear. His mouth was agape. His hands were shaking. Sweat glistened upon his brow. I'd never seen my older brother afraid of anything. In my eyes, Jack was just as superhuman, invincible as my father was. They were both massive men, more than 6 feet tall, both rippling with muscles, both with beards, calloused hands. Something had frightened Jack, and as far as I was concerned, if it was enough to frighten him, we were all in trouble. I scanned the field around us, but saw absolutely nothing. My eyes landed on David, who must have seen the same thing Jack did because he let me go and ran away. "No," I shouted. "David, come back." Jack clamped a hand over my mouth, stifling my urgent cries. If there was something in the cornfield with us, David shouldn't have gone off alone. I considered biting Jack's hand just so I could call out to my friend. But just as I managed to get a small piece of flesh between my teeth, Jack began to swear again. "Shit," he squeaked, tightening his grip on me. The absolute fear in his voice stopped me from my endeavor. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but his hand was still firmly clamped against my mouth. "Dad," he shouted as he sprinted towards the road. "Hi, Snooze. Hi, ML. Thank you so much for the hydrate, and thank you so much for the love. Thank you, thank you. I will get some hydration in." Rika loves you macaroons very much too. I hope you feel better soon, Emil. Plenty of loves to you. I'm gonna give you chat a few kisses to give back some of the love. There you go. Good night, Emil. Take care too. Take care, take care. Have plenty of sleep, and I hope tomorrow is better. "What? Did you find her?" Dad shouted back. I was being jostled back and forth, the motion of it all making me sick to my stomach. I tried to reach the ground so I could run beside Jack instead of being carried, but Jack had me pressed against his cheek, my feet dangling helplessly above the dirt. "Dad," he shouted again. "Dad." His voice broke and I looked up. A fresh wave of nausea washed over me when I realized he was crying. "Dad." Bye-bye, Speaks. I hope you have a really good day at work. Thank you so much for your mud work today. Make sure you get plenty of hydration in. And good luck at work. I hope it'll be a good day and that you get to rest plenty when you come back from it. My dad's voice became frantic as the two of them searched for one another. Finally, we broke free of the cornfield, just as my dad took a step in. "Don't go in there," Jack shouted, tears streaming down his face. My dad's face paled for the second time that morning. I don't think he'd ever seen his adult son cry. My mother was in panic, behind him, demanding what had happened. Jack shouted again that Dad needed to get out of the cornfield. My father eventually stepped away, humoring my brother. My parents flanked him as we all sprinted back towards the house. Jack practically dropped me onto the kitchen floor, but I didn't really notice. I was too busy watching him cry and shake and try to stutter out things that just weren't making sense. Eventually, my eldest brother, that I'd come to think of more as a god than a man, collapsed onto the ground. He cried into himself, curled up in a ball like a scorned toddler. That image is forever burned into my brain. The utter helplessness that radiated off him. The agony that was etched into each of his features. It's maddening to think of, even now. After what felt like hours of my brother sobbing on the ground, my mother rubbing his back, going soft words, he composed himself, just enough to speak. "Look at her arm. Look at her arm," he shouted. His hand shot out to grab my own. My father stepped towards us. I shrank away, unsure of what to expect from him, but the look of worry in his eyes quelled any fears I had of physical punishment. "What happened?" he asked, staring down at the handprint-shaped bruise that David had left on my arm. I hadn't noticed it until that moment. Once pointed out to me, I remember feeling more confused than frightened or angry. I eyed it curiously. I'd never bruised so easily before. What's more, I'd never gotten a bruise that lights before. Jasmine, my dad asked, cupping my chin in his hands. He forced my head up and stared down at my green eyes. What happened? I gazed back at him, dumbfounded. Why was he concerned with a bruise? Odd as it may have been, it wasn't important. Jack and David had seen something terrible in the cornfield. Why weren't they storming outside, guns in tow? Why weren't they shooting whatever had my brother so frightened? Mountain lions were prevalent in the area. I assumed he'd seen one of them stalking us, or perhaps he'd seen a raccoon wobbling with the telltale signs of rabies. My dad had shot one of those once in a backyard. My mother had cried for hours after that. It seemed logical that if it brought her to tears, it would do the same to Jack. Despite the utter confusion that plagued my young mind, I answered him. I just assumed we'd get to whatever it was that happened as soon as he knew I was okay. David tried to pull me. I had intended to tell him the whole story about how David and Jack had treated me like a rag doll, played a quick game of tug-of-war before whatever it was in the cornfield that scared him away. "No, Jasmine, tell me what really happened," Dad shouted again. I jumped, pulling my arm back, not really understanding why I was in trouble. "That is what happened," Jack said, his voice upturned and distant. He sounded distraught, broken, and a little angry. "What do you mean? That's what happened," my father demanded. My mind was spinning. Why were we talking about David? Why did anyone care about what happened between me and David? Why was this what we were talking about? "I mean what I said," Jack shouted, burying his face in his hands. I jumped, letting out a small squeak as I put a few feet between myself and the cluster of family members. No one yelled at Dad. No, we all knew that would be suicide. But Dad didn't get angry. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten to kick Jack out. Instead, his features crumpled and he looked back at me. "Jasmine, tell me what happened," he said. There was something about his voice that made my stomach hurt again. "I just told you," Jack shouted, standing up suddenly from his place on the kitchen floor. He stabbed a hand at the refrigerator to the picture of David and I holding hand. He looked just like her fucking drawings. My heart leapt. Jack saw again, but as my eyes went over to my dad, I realized he wasn't angry. He acted as though he hadn't even heard the word. His features were pale and his hands shook at his sides. Skinny kid, brown skin, black hair, jeans, red shirt. It was in that moment that something struck me. I'd never thought much about it before, but the way Jack shouted about David's clothes made me realize it. Never seen him outside of the red t-shirt and dirty jeans. But Jack's voice drew me out of my thoughts. But his voice broke once again, tears streaming down his face. What? My mother asked. Jack, what? Jack looked up to them, his face white as a sheet. Tears stained his cheeks and ran into his beards. His voice trembled. He didn't have any eyes. That is how the first post ends. That is how the very first post of this ends. Oh, I think we're gonna be able to read at least part 2 today. I wanna read at least part 2 today. And we'll see how long it is. Thank you for the love, Salad Grapes. I really appreciate it. Rika loves you macarons very, very, very much. Very, very, very plenty much. Ow, wow, 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 wow. Ow, wow, 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 wow. Ow, wow, 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 wow. Ow, wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much for the love, Polaris. I really appreciate it. Ow, woo. Ow, woo. There you go. Let's read that second part. Slowly. The summer I met David, part 2. The couple days after my ordeal with Zack and David in the cornfield left me feeling broken. Hello. I had a million questions, but as it turned out, no one was willing to even speak of my friend. My mother acted as though it hadn't happened at all. I'd ask her some question about how she spoke to him if she'd never seen him, and she'd judge me. It was the single most frustrating experience of my life. Dad got really quiet. He rarely talked to anyone unless he absolutely had to. He always looked tired, always raggedy and worn out. Found out about a week after our escape from the field that Dad was sleeping on the porch with a loaded shotgun at his side. He didn't buy Jack's story of David's missing eyes. He'd come up with his own theory. Someone was hiding in the cornfield and had tried to kidnap me. He wanted to make sure they didn't come back. It was a weak theory, one formed on little grounds, but he was a religious man, grasping at straws, trying not to believe in the monster under the bed. I think Jack's reaction was the worst, though. He went from being an outgoing, loving, wonderful older brother to a complete stranger. He was jittery, anxious, a mess. He mumbled constantly about empty eyes. He was plagued with nightmares so intense that he'd wake screaming in the middle of the night. Most of those nights he would flail about. Twice he knocked his lamp off the side table. Each time it caused a thunderous, ear-splitting noise that made my heart jump into my throat. Both times my parents ran into his room to make sure he was okay. By the third time a loud noise came from his room, neither of my parents checked on him. While they weren't angry with him and while they wanted to help, none of us knew how, so we ignored it. Probably wasn't the best approach, and I know Jack felt disconnected with the family. Looking back, I wish I'd found a way to reach out to him in his time of need. Johnny and Jim became distant, though not in the the same way as Jack. They did it on purpose, never staying in the room with anyone but each other for very long. They grew unbelievably close and began to watch movies with each other almost every night. Usually they were superhero themed, their favorites being Superman and Batman. While they weren't thrilled with being around the rest of the family, they made it very clear that they'd rather die than be in the same room as me. But in the end, I'd finally gotten the answers I'd craved from the two of them. They'd been in the living room watching Superman 2 when I climbed upon the couch. Johnny scolded at me, but I pretended not to notice. My 6-year-old frame fidgeted on the couch as I waited for a good point on the movie to speak. After what seemed like years, there was a lull in the action. Seizing the moment, I turned to my brothers. My stomach flipped with nervousness, but I pressed on anyway. How else was I going to get answers, if not through them? Mom and Dad weren't going to tell me anything, and asking Jack anything right now seemed cruel. How'd Mom talk to David if he wasn't there, I asked, proud of myself for keeping my voice steady. Johnny glared over to me, his lips curled up in a sneer. I shrank back suddenly, very worried that my question might result in physical repercussions. I'd been hit once by Joni and wasn't eager for a repeat. She didn't talk to him, stupid, he hissed, his voice flat and cold. It made my heart speed up. You were playing a game, so she just played along. Don't you remember when Jim had an imaginary friend, and Mom and Dad talked to it too? Yeah, Jim sneered. At least mine was normal. It was just a dog, and I knew it was fake. I'd lifted my arm in protest, brandishing the massive bruise along my forearm. Does this look fake? I demanded, my eyes narrowed in absolute hate. Johnny's face twisted into a hateful glare. His teeth gritted tightly together. My heart fell. I tried to scramble away, but I wasn't fast enough. Something hard collided against my back, sending me crashing against the pale living room carpet. Pain bloomed along my saddened arms. I turned around. My brothers wobbled and became distorted as I watched them through tears. Get out of here, freak, Johnny hissed. I picked myself up and did as I was told, wiping tears away from my eyes with the sleeves of my shirt. I cried that night like most nights after David's disappearance. Despite knowing it was wrong because of all the pain he caused my family, I missed him. He'd been my best friend. He'd made me feel better when Johnny broke his arms, and I knew he'd make me feel better about Johnny pushing me. My 6-year-old mind was incapable of understanding what was going on. I couldn't believe that David, who had seemed so very real to me, was imaginary. I couldn't accept that no one else could see him. I couldn't understand why Jack was so sad and frightened. My loyalty to my best friend hadn't faltered. I was positively convinced at the time that David hadn't meant any harm. I fully believed that he'd only pulled me into the cornfield because he was frightened of my dad, an understandable reaction. My father was scary when he was angry, something that admittedly didn't happen often. At the crossed my mind that he'd actually tried to kill me twice. I never pieced together that he knew both the Black Widow and the Coral Snake were venomous. The days drug on. I fell into a deep depression. Eating and sleeping became hard. I was no longer in love with the outdoors. I was actually looking forward to the start of the school year. It was a welcome change from being stuck at home all day with siblings who were either broken or completely hated me. The only person that had remained unchanged by the events was Joey, and he was simply too young to have developed resentful feelings towards me. Our family seemed entirely broken, and I felt that I was to blame. I tried to fix us twice. My first attempt happened at dinner time, exactly 1 week after my escape from the cornfield. I'd waited for everyone to sit down and begin eating before I announced that everything was okay, because David did have eyes. Everyone fell silent. Johnny and Jim glowered at me. My mother told me that David wasn't an appropriate dinner conversation. Jack broke down and left. Dad announced he wasn't hungry and retreated to the back porch. I excused myself and went to my room, where I continued to brood, feeling worse for having broken us further. My second and last attempt came the following day. It was Sunday. We were on our way to the church, and I suggested in all my 6-year-old wisdom that we take our cousin to the priest. My father locked on the brakes so hard I thought I might fly clear to the front seat. My mother glared down at me. I thought Johnny was going to skin me alive the way he glared. Jack cried again. I was told that I should never tell anyone outside of the family what happened. I decided in that moment that the only way to save our family from this odd sort of destruction was to completely ignore the subject of David entirely. After all, that seemed to be what everyone else wanted. Days bled away, and eventually I had my first nightmare regarding my old friend. In the dream, I was asleep until I felt the lights like prodding at my cheek. I opened my eyes only to see a nihilist David standing above me. I woke screaming, crying. When my mother rushed in to see what was wrong, I lied. I told her I'd had a nightmare about being chased by a massive dog. It had been a reoccurring dream for me just last year, and was the sole reason my father had yet to get the German Shepherd he so desperately wanted. She believed me, gave me a kiss, a hug, and told me to curl back up. She reminded me that there weren't any dogs around. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Next day I was greeted with terrible news. Mittens, the barn cat, who just had a litter of kittens less than 2 months prior, had gone missing, along with all 7 of her babies. My brother and I spent hours looking for them. We even set traps, arming them with fresh meat and wet cat food. It took a solid 3 days for Jack to decide that a coyote or fox must have gotten to them. I was devastated, but I kept my sadness to myself, not wanting to burden anyone in the family with it. I'd learned over the course of the last week and a half that no one was interested in my problems. It was a sort of despondent revelation that filled me with a sudden sense of helplessness. My world, once so small and safe, had been shattered, leaving in its wake something ugly and raw. Drinky time. The next few days went on as normal. I took the pictures I'd drawn of David and I threw them away, without my chatter and the reminders that used to hang from the refrigerator. The family began to feel normal again. Dad started sleeping in bed. Mom stopped walking around with that wide, delusional smile on her face. Jack had a few good days in which he didn't cry, and he even laughed. Johnny and Jim were still distant, but these stopped trying to push me around so much. Joey never changed. He remained the sweet little toddler he was, too young to understand much of anything. It was nearly a full 2 weeks after David had disappeared that our family started to mend. Saturday morning it started as it usually did. Jack, Dad, Jim, and Johnny were out on the farm, doing whatever it is they did. Mom and I were inside. She was washing dishes in the kitchen. Joey was playing on the floor beneath the kitchen table, reciting the colors of his toys to himself. I was in the living room, dusting, my least favorite job. Where's my Green's Hydrate Redeem? Well, you'd better, you know what, I'll hydrate even if you do not give me Hydrate Redeem because I'm thirsty. The front door slammed and rapid footfalls echoed in the hallways. I assumed it was Jim, who often sprinted through the hallway, rounding the corner and sliding to halt in front of Mom as she stood at the sink. He'd usually ask her for water or lemonade to bring out to the boys while they worked. I peeked around the corner, bored and looking for a reason to abandon my post. I hoped Mom would ask me to get Jim whatever it was he wanted. Mom must have thought it was Jim too because she dried her hand and was waiting, leaning against the counter. She stood, looking dumbfounded as the footfalls stopped it, but no one entered the room. Carelessly, carelessly, she stepped over the hallway to look. I watched as she paled, lightening. She wiped her hands nervously on her apron and moved back to the sink. Curiously, I stepped into view. Who was it, Mom? I asked. Jim must have run back outside, she answered. The door only opened once and I never heard footsteps back to it, I countered, the words out of my lips before I could stop them. Girl, I can hear your lips getting dry, really. Because they kinda are, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I'll drink some more. There you go, you happy, Todd? I've drank. Let me check the hour while I'm at it. Okay, I do have a little bit more time. Easy. We get to read that second part, Todd. I shrank away. Oh shit, I forgot to read a line. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes shone with an odd mixture of fear and anger. What are you supposed to be doing right now? She demanded. I shrank away. Cleaning, I answered, my voice defeated. Then I suggest you get to it, she snapped, as she submerged her hands once more into the soapy water. I spun around, intent upon going back to my work, before I was yelled at, but a sharp cry of pain caught my attention. My mother pulled her hand back. Blood trickled down her hand and glistening it red. My eyes widened. Son of a bitch, she shouted. See, this is the reason I don't like to drink too much. Very similar, because I get the burpees after drinking for some reason. She shouted. I gasped. I'd never heard her swear before. She was such a soft-spoken, sweet woman. I know it sounds stupid, but I didn't even know she knew how to swear. I thought all the knives up. Quickly, keeping pressure on the deep cut along her pointy finger, she rushed out of the kitchen and towards the downstairs bathroom. I could hear her fumble with the medicine cabinet as I walked closer to the sink. The large knife block that my mother kept just to the left of the sink had toppled over. 3 knives had fallen into the soapy water. I pulled them each out, careful not to cut myself, rinsed them off, and placed them back in the block. Jasmine, my mother called from the other room. Come in here. I need help getting this band-aid open. I glanced over to Joey, deciding whether or not I should take him with me. I stared at him as he walked from toy to toy. It was too risky to leave him alone. I walked toward him, arms out, trying to get him to come to me. No, my mother shouted from the bathroom. I jumped and scurried down the hallway, deciding that he couldn't get into much trouble in the few seconds it would take to open a bandage for my mother. I pulled the paper apart and took the protective layer of plastic off before handing the massive bandage to my mother. She took it and placed it over the top of the huge gas before wrapping it all in what my father referred to as people tape. It was some sort of medical tape used to keep water away from bandages to keep gauze in place. We used it frequently on the farm. I dashed back into the kitchen, my heart beating out of my chest as images of my brother getting past child locks and under the sink where we kept the bleach danced through my head. But as I rounded the corner, my eyes landed on the toddler, who sat under the table, playing with a small blue block. He repeated the word blue over and over. I smiled, feeling stupid for having been worried. I scolded myself inwardly for being so silly. I'd allowed myself to get sucked into text illusions. I'd somehow convinced myself that something nefarious was happening, when in all reality, Jim had likely come in and run back out, and the knives had probably just fallen over. It wasn't until I made it all the way back to the sink that I saw the glowing red dot on the stove. My heart sank. I made my way slowly over to it. All the burners had been turned up as high as they could go. Joey was too short to reach it. None of my brother would have done that. Neither I nor my mother had done it. Sorry. Sneeze time. I gotta sneeze again. Okay, no, we're fine. Sneeze crisis averted, I think. Nausea swept over me as I crossed the room and turned each of them off. I should have told my mother, but She was visibly shaken from the recent happenings, and I didn't want to worry her. Besides, she was only going to ignore it the same way she had ignored everything else. When she came back into the kitchen, I only gave her a small smile. "I'll finish the dishes," I offered. Her features softened. "Thank you, Jazzy," she answered. I spent the next several hours on edge and jumpy. Suddenly, I wasn't sure of everything. I couldn't convince myself that David wasn't the entity Jack thought he was. I felt like my eldest brother, constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for something bad to happen. But hours passed and nothing happened. Eventually, I managed to put the thoughts out of my mind. Lunch came and went. The boys showered and changed into regular clothes. Joey sat in the kitchen floor with Dad while the two plush toys guarded to one another. Jim, Johnny, Jack, and I sat in the living room. Jack was reading something while the boys and I watched a movie. Johnny had tried to kick me out, but Jack had snapped at him and assured me I could stay. Mom was tending to the garden, happy to have a break from being indoors. "Jim," my dad snapped from around the room. "What?" Jim asked from his plate beside Johnny. My father went silent for a long time. The sound of cars sliding against linoleum and entirely ceased. Nearly a full minute of silence passed before my father responded in a small, careful voice. "Are you in the living room?" he asked. "Yeah," Jim answered as he stood up and went to stand in the doorway. He leaned against the frame as he spoke to my dad, who was just out of sight. "What?" he asked again. Silence. Jim stared into the room expectantly, before understanding washed over his features. He stiffened, his eyes widened. "Is Mom in the bathroom?" he asked. Johnny clicked the pause button. The familiar streaks of static molded to the screen, interrupting the fight scene between Batman and a villain I didn't recognize. We all fell silent, straining our ears, trying to listen to whatever it was that had frightened Jim and apparently my father. Finally, I heard it. The sound of the shower running. Jim was infamous for taking too long of showers, which explained why my father had barked at him for it. "Maybe it is your mother," Dad reasoned. I turned around, looking out the window, only to find my mother stooped onto the ground, just her hair visible in the glass. My breath hitched. The shower immediately shut off. The door creaked open. I watched as Jack winced away, trying his best to ignore the exchange and submerge himself into his book. It quaked in his hands. He bit his lower lip. "Stay with your brother," my father commanded. I heard him move down the hall towards the bathroom. "Jane," he called for my mother. "Honey." I looked back again, only to find my mother's hair bobbing slowly up and down as she weeded the garden. I knew he wouldn't get a response. The footfalls ended. "Who is it, Dad?" Jim asked. Silence that seemed to last forever filled the room. answered. I jumped with the sound of his voice. Goosebump rose along my arms. I stood up and made my way to the bathroom, shaking off Johnny's protests and squirming past him as he tried to physically stop me. I scurried down the hall, skidding to hide beside my father and peeking into the bathroom. The mirror was steamed, the walls were slick with fresh water. The shower curtain had been drawn. My father was looking inside of it. The color had leaked from his face. He took a step back and shooed me out of the room, then closed the door. The shower started again. My father squeezed his eyes shut. I tried to turn around, but he grabbed both of my shoulders and pushed me forward with such force that I couldn't have stopped if I tried. We spilled into the kitchen. Dad immediately let me go and barked my brother's names. The toilet flushed. Thank you, Demon, for deciding to lick yourself right at that moment. Very helpful. He picked up Joey and informed everyone that we were all going to town to grab ice cream. Drake clapped and shouted celebratory words. The bathroom door opened. Footfalls patted down the hallway. Jack pushed Jim and Johnny out the door, his whole body trembling as he hurried them along. My father grabbed me by the arm and pulled me outside. Scrim never faltered as he dragged me forward, the whole while I craned my neck round, trying to get a glimpse of whatever it was. Somehow I'd convinced myself that it could have been David. That David was definitely a real person. Whatever this was different. Dad pulled me outside. The warm air, the stench of the pigs, it hit me. Dad slammed the door and urgently pulled me over to the driveway. Gravel crunched beneath my feet. The door swung open, slammed against the wall with a deafening bang. Jack screamed and immediately grabbed both the boy's arms. He pulled him along as he sprinted towards the car. Ear-shattering crashes erupted into the pseudo-silence. Over and over, the door swung, wildly, slamming shut and bouncing against the wall. My father shouted as my mother rounded the corner, heading toward the front door. No one's inside. His voice shook as he screamed the words. My mother's eyes widened. She dropped her spade on the ground and headed towards us. Her gaze swift and clipped. I opened the car door and was immediately hit with the smoldering heat. My father almost always let the air conditioning run for at least 10 minutes before putting Joey in the car, but today was different. He buckled him into his car seat, despite his wails as the hot metal of the buckle touched his sensitive skin. "It's too hot, I'm thirsty," he cried. "We'll buy you a drink when we get to the store," Dad said, a wide, fake smile plastered upon his lips. Could see the fear and anger just below the surface. He looked a lot like how Jack always looked, except Jack wasn't keeping himself together nearly as well as Dad was at the moment. He was sitting in the very back of the old station wagon, his features crumpled. He was crying silently as he stared at the house. door could still be heard slamming furiously. Could remember being scared in that moment. I could see the fear on everyone else, but my mind couldn't process what was happening. I sat quietly, stunned, unable to function or speak or even move. I simply receded into myself. My dad peeled out of the driveway, leaving the home behind us. I think he'd hoped the few hours we'd be out would see everything return to normal. We got ice cream first, as promised, and my father bought Joey something to drink as well as a small vanilla cone. Then, despite the fact that we really couldn't afford it, my father had just purchased a new work truck that same month. We went out to eat. We spent nearly 3 hours out before we began the long drive home. The sun was touching the horizon as we pulled into the driveway. Joey was nodding off. Jack was still a mess in the back. Jim was trying his hardest to comfort him, and Johnny was pissed, brooding quietly to himself while glaring death to me. I was busy watching the home for any sign of a moving door. I saw it before I hit the car. Bang. My window cracked with the force of the heavy metal. My father swerved and nearly hit the light post. My mother shrieked. Jack burst into tears and so did Joey. I stayed motionless. The spade my mother had been using to garden earlier had come hurtling toward me. Had my window been down like it usually was, it would have likely driven itself straight through my skull. Dad, can we please stay at a motel? Or can we grab the tent? Can we sleep anywhere but here? Johnny begged from the back seat. I turned around to meet his gaze. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in those few moments. His eyes were puffy and red from crying. His skin was blotchy. I didn't recognize him as my brother in those moments of terror. I don't have any money. I could hear the defeat in my father's voice as he spoke. Then the tent, Jack begged. Please, Dad, please, can we get the tent? There was a certain urgency to his words that I had never heard before. I kind of feared that I hadn't known existed in adults swept over him. Dad, please. Yeah, my dad answered, nodding his head. Yeah, Jack, we can camp for the night. I'll call up Steve while we get our stuff together. See if he isn't willing to drop by and do clothes for the next few days. Everyone go inside, pack up your clothes, and get together the coolers. Pack food that won't go bad. Grab all the bottles we have for water and fill them. His instructions were given in a way that left no room for argument, and his eyes landed on Joey. Jack, you stay out here with Joey, he instructed. Jazzy, Johnny, Jimmy, you guys all go upstairs and stay together for the love of all things Holly. He locked eyes with Johnny. I mean it. Don't any of you go anywhere else without the others. You understand me? Mom and I will go to the basement and get the camping gear. Everyone nodded. I could see the shame on Jack's face. Not only had Dad called him by his old nickname, but he'd given him the task of looking over Joey. Everyone knew it was just so he didn't have to go inside. He was so broken already. I don't think anyone trusted him to keep himself together long enough to do anything. We piled out the car. Jack grabbed Joey and set him atop the car while we all inside. We didn't notice the water until we got to the far end of the hallway, connecting to the kitchen. There was what I thought to be a large puddle in the middle of the floor. It took until I heard the faucet to understand what had happened. The sink was on. Judging by the flooded kitchen, it had likely been on the entire time we were gone. Our shoes slipped and slid as we walked through the kitchen, looking around, entirely dumbfounded. My father turned the sink off, but it didn't stop the noise. Jim was the one to peek down the side hall to the bathroom. The bathroom's flooded too, he announced. My mother burst into tears. This doesn't change anything. Get upstairs. Get your stuff together, Dad insisted. We fled upstairs only to find fresh puddles leading into the bathroom. Someone had plugged the drain and the sink in the tub and turned them both on. The bathroom and part of the hallway was flooded. It would be a miracle if the living room, the room directly below the upstairs bathroom, wasn't soaked. While we gathered our things and my father gathered the tent and camping equipment in the basement, my mother moped. She cried the whole time. Finally, we had gathered all things and my father gathered the tent and camping equipment in the basement. Oh shit, I already read that. We had gathered everything and headed outside. The last noise we heard before closing the door and locking it behind us was the sound of the kitchen sink turning on. Our drive to the woods just a few miles away was entirely silent. We lost something that day. Something so much more than a good night's sleep or the convenience of having your refrigerator and microwave at our disposal. We lost our will to fight. We lost the upper hand we'd once had. We'd lost the battle and whatever was in our home knew it. It was for this reason that the next few days passed in a haze. We went to bed, got up, ate, got dressed, sat around in the woods. We didn't speak. We ate again. We sat around, silently. We ate again, and we slept. Refrigerator. Did I say refrigerator? No, I meant refrigerator. This went on for 3 days before my dad decided he couldn't take it anymore. His fear had melted away, leaving on anger and aggression in its wake. Despite my mother's tears, Jack's pleas, and Johnny's refusal, we went back on the third night. My father insisted that we wouldn't be driven from our own homes. I wish we'd just left the whole fucking place behind. The house was flooded yet again, and the floor had become waterlogged, swollen. The sinks had been shut off and drained. Somehow that was more frightening than anything. We all helped my mother mop up the mess. She still cried. I wanted to sleep downstairs or in the room with Jack and Jim, but my father refused. He insisted that if we ignored his presence, if we prayed, if we acted as though nothing was wrong, it would go away. Jack didn't believe him, and he made this very evident. For the first time in my life, the night ended with screams. But it was all for naught. My father won the argument. Eventually, I was sent off to bed. I don't know how, but eventually, sweet oblivion pulled me down. Something sleek and wet touched my cheek. Jasmine, came the whispered call. My dream world shattered, giving way to the darkness that had encompassed my room. The sun had long since died along the horizon, and the timed night light I had on my desk had turned off. The moon and stars were hidden behind clouds. The room was completely dark. And then, it wasn't. For no discernible reason, the floor lamp across the room clicked on. Light flooded the room, instantly causing me to cringe away. As I slowly blinked away the pain and tried to focus, I became very aware that something was wrong. There were small puddles in the middle of the room. At first, while I studied them, my brain wouldn't allow me to fully comprehend why this was significant. Water, puddles, footprints. Suddenly I couldn't catch my breath. Understanding hit me all at once, and the familiar urge to vomit filled me. I opened my mouth, intent upon screaming, but I couldn't force any noise to leave me. My hands shook and my bladder emptied. Hot liquid spilled down my legs and puddled beneath me, soaking into sheets. The pungent odors immediately stung my nose, causing me to gag. It was the first time I'd had an accident in years. Bang. I had no idea what the noise was, only that it sounded like a gunshot. Had happened just inches to the left of my bed. Fear gripped me tightly, forcing the breath from my lungs and filling me with the sudden need to puke. A scream leaped off the bed. My legs wobbled as I sped towards the doorway. Bang. The door slammed. Click. The room went dark. I spun around, my body pressed tightly against the wood of the door. I was hyperventilating, unable to take a full breath. My hands shook as I searched blindly for the light switch. I stopped dead as a new sound penetrated the pseudo-silence. Breathing. I could distinctly make out someone else's breathing. With trembling hands and a new reserve to get the door open, I clicked the light on and screamed. Dad! I shrieked as loudly as I could. My voice was panicked, my heart clouded at my chest, trying to free itself from the cavity. Before me stood the person I'd managed to half convince myself had just been some sort of dream. The person I couldn't believe was responsible for the horrors that had filled the home the last few days. Red shirt soaked and clinging to brown skin. Black hair flattened against his scalp. But the most terrifying part, the reason for the desperate screams, the reason I couldn't breathe or think or even manage to cry, was his eyes. They were gone, just empty sockets in their place. Dad! I shrieked a second time. My hand went to the doorknob as I tried desperately to open it. It was locked, except my door didn't have a lock. Dad! Tears were streaming down my face and I suddenly realized why Jack spent his time crying. Daddy! Frantic footfalls exploded from my parents' room. Jasmine, my dad called back, his voice wild with fear. Jasmine! Dad! I shrieked. I physically shook at as my dad hit the door with all his might. Open the door, baby, he shouted, banging against it. jingling the doorknob. What's wrong? Jack's voice came out of nowhere. David took a few slow, dangerous steps toward me, rounding the bed. His bare feet hit the ground with a sickeningly wet noise. He left puddles with each of his steps. I sucked in a sharp breath. No, 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 no. I whimpered as I stumbled further away from him to the corner of my room. I curled into myself. Please leave, please go away, David, I begged through ragged sobs. David cocked his head slowly, staring at me with empty sockets. A wicked smile spread along his lips. He took another step forward. Dad, I choked out through desperate sobs. Unlock the door, my dad shouted from the other side. There's no lock, Jack's words were quietly hissed. I knew they weren't meant for my ears, but I heard them all the same. There was a pause. A full 2 seconds of absolute silence. David took another step. My dad's furious pounding became frantic. I could practically hear the panic behind each the blows he dealt to the door. I molded myself against the wall, convinced I was going to die. Back up, came Jack's voice. Bang! A splinter of wood showered the room as Jack's foot collided with it, forcing it open. A figure dashed into the dark room, scooped me up, pressing me against his muscular frame. I let out a quivering breath and wrapped shaking arms around my father's neck. My small face buried into his shoulder as I cried away the fear and pain that racked my 6-year-old body. Daddy, I said the word over and over, each time it brought with a sense of peace and safety. My father's hand rubbed my back and he allowed me a few minutes of quiet as I sobbed. Can we leave? I choked out. Please, can we go camping? Please. I craved the boring serenity of the forest. I needed the safety the trees offered me. I couldn't stay here anymore. No, came my father's response. My heart sank. I began to wail. Tears streamed down my face as I loudly begged my father to allow me to leave, but he refused. We have to ride this out, Jazzy. We can't let this thing drive us away. We can't let this ruin us. He continued to talk, but I'd stopped listening. Despair and desperation filled me to the very brim, until I thought for sure I'd burst. Would you like to sleep downstairs on the couch, princess? Jack asked, his voice soft and his features strong. He wasn't crying. He wasn't sad or frightened. He looked determined. I'm going to sleep down there. I'll stay with you through the night, he swore. My father tossed him a glare, but stayed quiet as I nodded my head rapidly. Jack pulled me into his arm and a sense of safety washed over me. Despite his many breakdowns over the course of the last few weeks, I still thought of the man as invincible. I melted into his arms and allowed him to carry me down the stairs. He pulled extra blankets from the closet with one arm because I refused to be put down. Jack made his bed on the couch while I curled up on the chair. I'd initially wanted to sleep beside him, but the couch wasn't large enough. We turned down the TV and put in Aladdin. It was my favorite movie at the time, mostly because my name was in it. Jack, who usually wouldn't have agreed to watch it, seemed happy about it, saying he needed something light to calm his nerves. Despite the fear that still racked me, I hadn't slept decent in nearly 4 days. Soon enough, exhaustion took over and I found myself fighting heavy eyelids. I dozed off around the time Genie started singing about being the best kind of friend. When I woke up, the TV was making a high-pitched, whiny noise. A blue screen illuminated the room. Jack, oh shit, I forgot a line, sorry. The rest of the house was quiet. I nearly sank back into sleep. Had I not heard the sharp intake of breath from the left side of the room where Jack had fallen asleep, I might have. Jack was curled up at the edge of the couch. His body trembled. His eyes were wide and shiny with fresh tears. He was staring straight at me, I remember. I also remember in that moment being confused, not knowing why he'd be looking at me as though I'd grown a second hand. You're in my spot, Jack. The words were sharp and venomous. They were heavy with the promise of violence. My body stiffened. I felt as though my lungs had been deflated. My stomach lurched. Fear gripped me tightly, wrapping withering fingers around me and sucking everything but ugliness and despair away from my small body. Slowly it turned, only for my eyes to land on the same wet, eyeless version of the boys I'd once known. He turned to me, his lips twisting upward. Are we having a sleepover? He purred. David reached toward me and the world seemed slow. I willed my body to move, but it refused to obey. No, Jack's voice boomed from my left. A massive hand wrapped around my arm and dug me out of the chair. David's face twisted with anger, but was safely in Jack's arms. He sprinted up the stairs, me pressed tightly against his chest, much like I had been when we'd first run from David, back when he'd been my friend instead of a monster. Jack threw open the door to the boys' room. Up, he shouted. Get up. We're leaving. We're fucking leaving, he barked. Both the boys sat up, looking rather groggy and confused, but they did as they were told. A small shriek from the other side of the hole sent me crashing to the ground. It took me several dizzying seconds to realize that Jack had dropped me before sprinting towards Joy's room. He threw open the door. It bounced off the wall with a loud thump, causing Joey to scream louder. Jack scooped him up in his arms and headed down the hallway. Sorry, was that you, little demon, or was that my headphone? Probably you. Okay, because you're moving. I got really scared. the demon on my lap made a noise and it sounded like a glitch. Let's go, he shouted again. What the hell is going on? My father shouted above the noise and confusion as he stormed out of his room. You want to stay in this hellhole? Jack spat back, eyes narrowed in absolute disgust. You fucking do it, but I'm not staying, and I'm sure as hell I am not leaving them. He shouted, stabbing a finger at my brother and I. Get your shit and come with us, or fucking stay here. I don't give a good damn. My dad narrowed his eyes in anger. He opened his mouth, probably to shout back, but before he could, Jack's fist shot out. It connected with my father's jaw. sending him staggering back. My breath got in my throat. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. Before my father could react, Jack shoved us forward. We all flashed, rushing down the stairs and tearing through the hallway. My father bounded after us. He was roaring angrily, shouting something about King Jack's ass, but as we spelled outside and the cool air hit us, we stopped in our tracks. Fuck, my dad shouted. Fuck me, Jack hissed. Johnny vomited. Jim cried for the first time since my father had blamed him for breaking Johnny's arm. I didn't understand what everyone was so upset about. I followed Jim's line of sight. He sobbed and wailed. Oh, I don't want to read this, chat. I'm gonna get nauseous. There were things hanging from the trees. They swayed as the summer breeze bade them to dance. I turned my head this way and that, trying to understand what they were. At first, I thought them to be hummingbirds hovering in the trees. It took until Jim choked out the word mittens for the shapes to make any sense to me. There in the tree, against the light of the moon, hung our cat and all 7 of her kittens, strung up like fucking Christmas decorations. Their small bodies limp and lifeless. It was the single most lurid, grotesque thing I'd ever witnessed. My stomach churned, my mind went numb. I collapsed onto the ground. I couldn't catch my breath. I puked. I splattered along my legs and nightshirt. It was a fucking mess. Covered in vomit and piss, I sobbed away the feeling of absolute terror. Get to the car, my father said, but he sounded distant, as though I was hearing him from underwater. Something pushed me to my feet and pulled me toward the car. I curled into myself and sobbed the second I hit the seat. Hi chat, hello, under the water, hello, hello. This is weird, this is very weird, I don't feel so good, chat. I don't like it. It's making me feel very, is this TOS? No, it's not, probably not. There's nothing graphic, but you know. Ew. Very much ew. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. David had done it. David was dangerous. I knew this because he scared Jack and Dad, the 2 strongest and bravest people I knew. David was hunting us. David wasn't human. Yeah, no, this is not TOS. Why do I have Rika wanting to leap out? I'm so fucking... I don't like this. It's not TOS, but I don't react well to that kind of things. It makes me feel sad. Like slightly grossed out, but mostly sad. Because I really do not like... like... You could describe this to me with people. Like, imagine it was people, or I don't know, even children hanging from there. I wouldn't give a shit. I would be like, sure, this is not cool, but like, I wouldn't have a reaction to it. But I really cannot stand animal abuse of any sort, even if it's not like thoroughly described. I can't, like, I don't know why animal abuse in particular hits me really, really hard. These thoughts ran through my mind long after my father parked the car just outside of the woods we'd escaped prior. we'd escaped to prior. They ran to my mind as the family tried without success to sleep in the cramped vehicle. They ran through my mind until a single word, spoken in a terrifyingly familiar voice, broke through the silence. Jasmine. He had been huddled in the car. We had been huddled in the car, holding tightly to one another as we tried to cling to thoughts of safety. David shattered all that, and a sense of cataclysmic doom that settled over us as we stared back at the sopping wet boy. I felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under me, as though the world were no longer real or solid. I felt wrong, destroyed. It was an odd sensation, but one well deserved, I thought. We'd found a heaven, a place of safety, a home in the forest where we thought the monster that had systematically demolished our lives couldn't reach us. And yet, here he was, standing just inches away from my window, hand on the cracked glass, empty sockets staring out at us. Ow. Sorry, it's I don't feel so good. Rika still hopes you had a really good time though, Tut. This was really fucking scary. So this is the end of part 2. I will probably do a follow-up to this. Cause there is like, I see 5 parts here, but I'm pretty sure there are 7s. But yeah. We'll see if we can, continue. It's scary. I don't know if it's like scary. It doesn't make me feel scared. It makes me feel uncomfortable. More than scared, because like it's mostly that cat part. I was completely fine until that cat part. I am not comfortable with anything related to animals. Uncomfortable. The other stuff I really do not give a shit about. The only stuff that makes me uncomfortable is the cat stuff. I want a cat. Why not a dog though? A dog is really cool. Really cool. Well, at least we did get weird shit of the night. It clearly was a good Hellhound Friday. Rika hopes you had fun. We are going to end here because it's been 3 hours and Rika does need to rest. It is 1 a.m. Thank you so much for the love. Rika appreciates it. How? Thank you so much for the love. There, have kisses. There. Well, as usual, we're not gonna rate anyone because I don't want the people who actually fell asleep or something to get like woken up by loud sounds. So yeah, as usual, don't forget to be good and to behave, because Rika doesn't want you to end up in hell. She doesn't want to have to take care of you. Okay? Bye, Macarons. Thank you so much for hanging out with Rika. We'll see each other again, probably either on Monday or Tuesday, because I will not be there this weekend. I thought I might, but I'm not, so we'll see each other either on Monday or Tuesday. Bye, Chad. Bye, Polaris. Bye, Saf. Bye, Chad. Bye, Lurkers. How